let's go on and call the meeting to order. Our July virtual membership meeting, July 11th, 12 p.m. will be called to order at this time. We'll have a prayer by Mr. Jones, and then we will go into our agenda.
Well, it was us.
Heavenly Father, we give you once again this day your thanks for your guidance, for you being with us as we have this meeting. We pray that for your favor, for your guidance, and for your mercy, that this day we may be able to do that which is pleasing unto thee. We ask for it in the name of Christ Jesus. Amen.
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 Thank you, Mr. Jones. I'm just going to briefly read out the agenda for those who don't have video. Okay. Okay, so the agenda is item number 1. We've called the meeting to order. Item number 2, we'll be reading the minutes from previous meetings. We might not read them in detail, just summarize them. That's from May 9th and June 13th. Brief reports of officers, as brief as possible, because number 4, new business. We're going to focus on an overview of the NAACP Game Changers, which is the goals of our national organization. We want to welcome Mr. Donovan. Welcome aboard. We want to go over these game changers as a means to orient interested people who are wanting to get involved in our organization, and to educate and to inform, and also listen to everyone's what issues they're working on and how those issues align with our goals. Very important. And so today we're going to just briefly go over those game changers. I'll have a slideshow to accompany that, and then we're going to take then we'll have some time for guests, introductions, and comments. So those of you who joined us who are not familiar with our organization, that'll be a good time to introduce yourself. And then we'll just do any other items, announcements, and any other items from committees, and then we'll adjourn. Okay, does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
And I heard a second
outlined.
and I think I heard a second from Mr. Jones. Is that correct?
Yes.
All in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Okay, item number 2, reading of minutes from previous meetings. Okay, let's just take a moment. I'm going to try to get this done real quick. I think what I'm going to, it's okay if I just briefly summarize what went on in those meetings for the record and not go into great detail?
Please.
Of course.
Please.
I'd be happy to keep it in summary. Yeah. I'm also going to bring those up on the screen share as well. Just need to bring it up here on my screen. There's 5/9. Okay. I'm also going to do June 13. Okay. So on the screen here, we've got May 9th. In attendance was, I'm just going to go by last names, Mac Wiley, Helen Wiley, Lamberg, Frederick Mangrum, Margaret Mangrum, and other executive committee members, Eric and Kathy Javino, Mr. Wiley, Kenzie Hall, and Kenzie Farrell. There was just a brief going over the previous minutes of April. There was a financial report that was approved. There was officer reports regarding communications, education, legal redress, strategic. There was no news at the time regarding Freedom Fund and strategic planning. There was President's MAC report about the coronavirus and pandemic and how that was affecting our community. There was a little orientation about how we're doing our virtual meetings, and some note about how some of the cancellations of meetings, that there was a lot of discussion about the Pueblo City Schools District and this 2020 census and the May 5th election. And there was there was also talk about disruptions in mail and the U.S. mail system, and there was also talk about Black men killed, in race under racist attacks, such as Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia. There was some unfinished business about doing donations to organizations that support ours. That's when we voted upon giving the Pueblo County Democratic Party that $250, and that was an affirmative motion passed. New business that's when we decided to do outreach to other community organizations to help them, especially the community organizations and churches that help us. So we wanted to keep that going, including Paco as well. And then in the announcements, there was, that's when we just had some brief announcements from members and then adjourned at 1:15. Any questions about the May meeting minutes? Okay, hearing none. Do I hear a motion to approve the May 9th minutes on the record?
I'll move that. This is Ruth.
Heard that was a first by Miss Ruth Ehrenberg. Can I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Roxanne Mack. All those members in favor of passing the minutes, say aye.
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 Any members who say nay? Hearing none, the motion passes. Move on to a brief outline of the June 13 minutes. That's when members present: Brown, Holmes, Florence Hunt, Kathy and Eric Javino, Robert Jones, Lamberg, Steve Mack, Frederick Mangrum, Ruth Nirenberg, Marty Poole, Ivestine White, Margaret Wright, and with Roxanna Mack presiding. Those who were excused that could not make the meeting was Lee English, Willie Hinton, Kenzie Hall, Margaret Mangrum, Rita J. Martinez, and Helen Wiley. We also had guests present from the Colorado, Montana, Wyoming State Conference. That was President Rosemary Lytle, Treasurer Linda D. Lemieux, and the Census Outreach person, Lee Ann Morning. We got many guests that day as well, as far as Michael Cervernek, Tommy Farrell, Vernon James, Denise Gallegos, Frank Lytle, Barbara and Keith Madkins, Lee Ann Morning, Patricia O'Brien, Sol Tafoya, and Keith and Will Height. And just, I had a note on that minutes. I said, if that was if you're a member, if you became a member, let us know. And because there's that lag when you sign up to be a member. It's our local roster isn't updated right away. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to us just so we know that we can keep you up to speed. Just briefly on those meeting minutes of June, just the usual business. Reading of minutes, financial report, that was approved, reports of officers, talking about the $2,000 grant application to the city government. That was t-shirts, NAACP Black Lives Matter t-shirts available for $12. And also we went on to committees, talking about communications, press and publicity. That's when I expressed some need for assistance with that. And then President Mack mentioned the statement that was published in the Chieftain under the title, Pueblo NAACP Branch, Floyd Death, the Final Straw. That, as you know, that sparked off our initiative to partner for Juneteenth. And then there was some discussion about education, that there's those free one-year memberships still available for people under 18, and conversations with the school board and the superintendent. Just some follow-up about those questions with board member Dr. Wright. We had guest speaker, State Conference President Rosemary Lytle. She talked about the Senate Bill 2217, Enhanced Law Enforcement Integrity, which later had passed the General Assembly in Colorado. She was encouraging us to continue to fight for justice and that to use these virtual meetings as a way to keep active and stay active during this time of pandemic. Finance, there was no news from finance other than the report. There was no news for legal redress, but just a reminder, we have our legal redress website and application online. Membership, they're again emphasizing money has been set aside for youth membership, so take advantage of that, spread the word. and Political Action Committee talked about getting out the vote and participating in census. Ruth Nierenberg mentioned that the League of Women Voters was doing voter registration at the Juneteenth. And Census Representative Leanne Morning explained about the census and the initiatives, including the 24 and 24 project, which is where on a Tuesday, June 16th, people were supposed to reach out, connect with their neighbors and friends to encourage them to take the census. There's no other reports from strategic planning or other committees. And then the new business, there was discussion about the conversation with law enforcement. That, by the way, you can see that forum with the chief of police, the county sheriff, and the district attorney. That whole forum was published online. It was published on the city of Pueblo's Facebook page, and there's a link to that on our news section and our Pueblo NAACP.net website. So go to our Pueblo NAACP.net website, go to the news section. You can find a link to that, so you can watch that whole forum. Later on, we planned for the Justice Rally, which we partnered up with Juneteenth, and we prepared an application to our national office. While we had a very short time frame to get that together, but we managed to at least happened, and a lot came from it, as you will find out. Other announcements was just general announcements from Mr. Mark Holmes, Mr. Larry Brown, and Dr. Margaret Wright. And then there was the resolution to organize for that Juneteenth rally, and that's when we adjourned at 1:30. Is there any questions about those minutes?
I do have a correction. Frank Lytle is not the treasurer for he's the finance chair.
Okay, thank you.
For the state conference.
Thank you for that. All right.
And also for the 1 year scholarships, memberships, is open to the college kids also.
Oh, good. Okay.
As well as the high schoolers.
Okay, so that makes sense. So people under 18, there's that, and of course, those are the costs. There's the $10 costs that we cover. But for people over the 18 and over who are in college, the membership is $30, but we cover that cost. Okay, great.
Correct.
All right. Any other questions, comments about those minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as corrected?
So approve,
Was that
Approved.
Kathy Javino?
yes.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Who was gonna talk?
Who was the second?
You talk.
I think they
You
were
like
talking.
that.
Was that Eric Javino who second?
Yeah. I'll second.
Okay. Do I hear all those members who say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All those members who say nay? The motion passes unanimously. Okay, let's move on to the agenda. Reports of officers. So, Madam President.
I'll do my report. I'm just going to preference my thoughts or my comments to what we're trying to do today in reference to sharing our game changers to our new folks that are participating in the meeting. I wanted to just let you know that NAACP, just to give you a little background on what we're about. The NAACP is a civil rights organization affecting change through policy advocacy. Communities of color face disparity in availability and access to health care, roadblocks to voting access, equity in education, police brutality, non-representation at many levels, and our voices are just not being heard. We work to achieve these objectives and so many more through our game changers, which will be brought up on a slideshow in a few minutes. But those game changers intertwine with our standing committees of our local branch, which some of our committees are are vacant, currently vacant at this present time. But I do want to go over those committees that we do have. And once you become a member, you can take part in these committees. But the committees that the branch has are the AXO, the Armed Services and Veterans Affairs, Communications, Press and Publicity, Community Coordination, Criminal Justice, Economic Development, Education, Environmental and Climate Justice, Finance, Freedom Fund, Health, Housing, Labor and Industry, Legal Redress, Membership, Political Action, Prison Branch, Religious Affairs, Young Adult, and Women in the NAACP. Those are our standing committees for the local branches. Currently, with the local branch, we have chairs for the Press and Publicity, Education, Freedom Fund, Legal Redress, Membership, Political Action. So we have a lot of committees that, like I said, are currently vacant, but we do still work in affecting these committees through our state conference, our regional district, as well as the national offices. So, and as I guess Alan has all of the different our committees on the computer right now. So as you think about joining us, you can look at the committees and seeing where your interests may lie. And as I said, we have a lot of openings that we are in need of expertise and help with. And these committees work together in our game changers, in implementing our game changers. And our game changers are the economic sustainability, education, health, public safety and criminal justice, voting rights and political representation, youth and college. And we just added young adult engagement. So I just wanted to touch on those, and we will go in more depth in a few minutes in reference to our game changers. We do have a sign-up sheet available with indicating your interest or strength and what we need to affect what our mission is. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Alan to continue with the agenda.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd also like to recognize State Conference Madam President Rosemary Lytle, who's joined us. Thank you. Okay. I see many more have joined us since we began the meeting. Sorry if I am not able to acknowledge you as we move along, but again, this meeting will be recorded and we'll be able to review it for posterity. And actually, on the share screen, I will share a couple things real quick. That's the engagement page that Madam President mentioned. In an email I sent out, some of you already seen this, but just so you know, there's this way that we can get people to tell us about themselves, what organization they're with, what you know, and what issues they advocate for. So this will help us understand your interests, and that'll help fuel our discussion and how we discuss how your interests and the issues you're concerned about align with the game changers, which we'll go over the other thing I wanted to share was that our meetings are being, again, recorded. And so we can go to our YouTube channel and you'll see a link for our meetings. So there's the member meetings. So there is a direct link that we'll make available. And you'll see that, just click on there, mini player. Oh. Anyway, you'll see a link that has our member meetings since May and June, and then this one as well. Okay, so, oh, and another little report I have to share. Well, I'll get to that report briefly, but I also wanted to recognize First President Helen Wiley, if she has anything to report as well. Has Helen Wiley joined us on the call?
I have nothing to report, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. All right, and but the only thing I have to report other than what we have on the agenda is that wanted to recognize new member Elizabeth Robin. She had helped us set up a social media account, and I'm going to share that screen as well. So here's an Instagram account for the NAACP Pueblo branch, and we just got a profile picture of Reverend Brown from the Juneteenth. Hope Mr. Brown doesn't mind us, but that's a great picture. And then 3 images that Lizzie has posted just to kind of show us what the potential is. So you'll find that each image, for those of you who aren't as familiar with Instagram as a social media platform, it's a very visually oriented. And then in the description, you'll see there's a chance to, hashtag, buzzwords and things that people look for so they can find us. And of course, the other thing is for people to follow us, to follow our account and like what they see. And we can also, here's some followers here. And then we can also follow other organizations, which is very important because if you go to our Instagram and you click on who we're following, you've got the Women's March, CSU Pueblo, the Art Museum, the President Derek Johnson from the NAACP, Together Colorado. It just goes on and on and on. Pueblo Indivisible, Pueblo Heritage Museum. State conference might be in there too. So there's a lot of potential for cross collaboration. So that's why social media is important and useful. There's also a TikTok account that she helped set up, and we'll go into that at another time. But our executive committee has control of the social media accounts, so we can all log in and control that and monitor accordingly. So just wanted to share that news. That's all I have to report as far as officer reports. I just wanted to just do that. Is there, I'd like to give Mr. Frederick Mangrum, Mr. Treasurer, an opportunity to share anything he'd like to share. Mr. Frederick Mangrum, do you have anything for the Finance Committee and Treasurer to share with the group?
You see anything new? The same report there?
Okay. Yeah. Just so everyone knows, in our membership at our executive committee meeting, Mr. Mangrum shared the monthly financial report, and that was approved at our executive committee meeting. And for those members, if you'd like to see a copy of that, just what I'll do is I'll email that to our members so you can see that. Okay.
And if Fred has that report, I would like for him to share that report.
Oh yeah, he already did. Remember, it was at our executive committee meeting. I think he shared that with us last week.
Well, he shared it, with the executive committee. I would like for the report to be shared with our general membership meeting also.
Oh yeah. So how about maybe him or Miss Margaret can email, because they have the email list that goes to the members. So if they can go ahead and do that, that'd be great. No.
Does Fred?
No?
Does Fred have the report?
President Mayor, we had said we weren't going to discuss that at this meeting.
Okay.
We did.
In our meeting that we wouldn't have the treasurer's report at this meeting.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
Madam President Rosemary Lytle was kind of indicating that there might be a matter of procedure that we're a bit off on. Can you help us clarify on that, Madam President?
There is a matter of procedure, and Madam State Conference Treasurer is also on the line on this call. Thank you so much for acknowledging me as I was shaking my head. Madam President is correct. Once the executive committee approves the treasurer's report in your meeting, it should absolutely be shared with and approved by the general membership, the general body, as we say. That's our customary procedure.
Okay. Would it be appropriate for me to just bring it up on the screen and we can just go over it real quick?
Well, just let Fred do it.
Okay. And I'll bring it up. I think I have a copy I can bring up on the screen too. So we'll let Mr. Fred, is that all right? Mr. Treasurer, you want to go over the
Okay,
report? Very good. And I'll bring it up on the screen.
Just give the totals.
Yeah, just do the summary of revenue, expenditures, and what the balance is.
Okay. All right then. You see, beginning balance was $17,253.57. Then there was a deposit of $120 added to that, and the total deposits was $17,373.57. Then the checks written, the total was $1,050, with the total debit charges was $53.01. So total charges, this withdrawals was $1,103.04. So the ending balance is $16,270.56.
Does anyone have any question about the June financial report? I also managed to share it on the screen here too. Do I hear a motion to approve the monthly report as presented?
I make a motion that we approve the treasury report as given.
I second.
Okay, that's Helen Wiley who seconded. All those in favor, all members in favor say aye.
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 All those members who oppose say nay. And the motion passes. Thank you. Thanks again, everyone. All right. Next on the agenda, and Madam President Mack, forgive me, I'm kind of taking the driver's seat here. Am I good on everything so far?
Yes.
Okay. So the next on the agenda is the new business, the Game Changers presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it up on a share screen, and also I'm just going to briefly introduce them, but I'm also going to encourage my fellow executive committee members to go a little more detail, not too great detail, because we're going to spend future meetings to go really in depth of each of these, but just to kind of give an overview to educate those who like to learn about them. Okay, so 6 Game Changers. You can find the Strategic Plan Game Changers from the national NAACP.org on our website at naacp.org. You can click the About link, and there's a link for the Game Changers there. And so the first one, and again, I'm actually learning a lot myself about this. So I'm just going to briefly introduce what they are, and I will encourage my executive committee members to chime in as well. The first one is economic sustainability, and that's about a chance for all to live the American dream. So just a little visual as well. You have the issues of the rich getting richer and the separation, the income gaps, and which also affect people of color. And we want to get to that. We want to get to a point where everyone has an opportunity. So.
I'll take the notes.
So that is. I'm just going to read a statement from the National about economic opportunity. The NAACP Economic Department recognizes the importance of the economy and economic issues in our advancing an equal opportunity society, and aims to address the challenging economic realities facing our country, including poverty, lack of jobs, and disproportionate high unemployment, and lack of affordable housing, foreclosures, The NAACP Economic Department's work enhances the capacity of African Americans and people of color and underserved groups through financial economic education, through individual and community asset building, through diversity and inclusion in business hiring, through career advancement and procurement, and monitoring financial banking practices. Does anyone have anything to add about that game changer?
I just wanted to say that, you know, in recently, the equity in the corporate community. I know the NAACP National just addressed some things with NASDAQ. We rang the bell. The president issued some challenges as far as the corporate community is concerned about having more representation there, and not just talk but action. Also, we just recently he shared an initiative with the Beehive, I believe, Black-owned businesses, which is, I guess, established by Beyonce, and sharing, emphasizing entrepreneurship. We here locally have worked with payday loans in Colorado specifically, but even in Pueblo, getting payday loans, interest, and their companies out of our communities. They prey on our communities, and we trying to put legislation and policies in place to combat that. Also, jobs with living wages, as you referred to earlier. The wealth gap is extremely high between the people of color, African Americans, and our white counterparts. Diversity representation in every employment arena. We're working with that here in Pueblo, with the city and county governments, with law enforcement, the fire department, the human resources throughout, with, like I said, the city and county. So we're a part of getting people hired, our people hired.
Okay.
And I think that's it, as far as what we're doing locally.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. Any other members on the executive committee like anything more to share about economic sustainability? Okay, all right, well, that was good. That's a good start. Let's go on and talk about the next game changer, education. Free, high quality public education for all. Just a little infographic here. You know, on this picture, it's a classroom, and on the left side, it says equality. And there's the teacher, and he's got little apple boxes for the 3 students there. And you might say that there's oh, sure, I've got equality here. We've got 2 apple boxes each. So the white kid's all the way at the top because he's tall. That girl's okay. And then the little kid can't reach the blackboard. So equity is about, in education, is making sure that everyone has an even, truly an equal and even chance. And that's illustration. The teacher is taking the apple boxes around. And so this kid, he can stand on his own. The young lady just need a couple. And then the shorter kid just needs a little extra. And now they're all touching that blackboard and experiencing education. I thought that was a really nice example. And we're starting to see more nationwide about, there's this consciousnness of youth and teachers as well. I know Michael has joined us on the call from Roncalli STEM, the principal. He's quite conscious about these issues. And so yeah, we're seeing more of this, and those conversations should continue. Just because we want to move towards a world where we're all have an opportunity together. And we're also seeing, I want to add, even lately here in Pueblo, we're seeing the demand for Chicano studies and Spanish to stay in schools as well. And we've been seeing even recently demonstrations to that effect. So just want to briefly state what we mean by the education game changer. The NAACP works to ensure that all disadvantaged students and students of color are on the path to college or a successful career by ensuring access to great teaching, equitable resources, and a challenging curriculum. We are dedicating to eliminating the severe racial inequalities that continue to plague our education system. Our ultimate goal is that every student of color receives a quality public education that prepares him or her to be a contributing member of a democracy. Any thoughts about that to share?
Again, I would just like to add that in the COVID-19 era, we're also wanting to make sure that we have a safe environment for our teachers and our students to learn. As we contemplate going back to school or having virtual education continue, we just need to ensure that we're on the stakeholders where we can put our input, and that's why we will continue to engage District 60 with our concerns, as well as District 70. I know we work a lot with District 60, as this are the bigger school district. But as we have discussed in previous months about the education system and the equality that plagues even here in Pueblo, with the stakes not being equal. And we brought that up even with the virtual learning, that some students didn't have access to computers, to Chromebooks and things of that sort. And we need to make sure that all students are able to access and have those things necessary to achieve.
Thank you, Madam President. Does anyone else have anything more to add? Oh, Ms. Sol Tafoya has something to add.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to take this opportunity to kind of encourage you all to really, if you haven't already, to really support getting fair tax on the ballot, because I really feel that, you know, funding is absolutely going to help us improve our education systems. It's going to help us be able to hire and retain educators. And as you all know, education is not one of the most well-funded areas, and it's absolutely important for families, for our future. And, you know, those who are living usually in zip codes that do not gross, you know, a high earned income are usually the ones that are impacted most. So I really think that it's aligned with the equity cartoons that you just shared with us. So if you haven't already signed, you know, just to get it on the ballot, I would really encourage you all to sign it. And I also have petitions if anyone is interested.
And so what was, say that again? So can you say that act again, the FAIR Act? What was it
so
again?
it's called fair tax. And so we're trying to collect signatures to just even place it on the ballot. And given COVID and everything, it's really been challenging. And we don't want anyone to risk themselves. Let's say that your circle that you interact with on an ongoing basis consists of 5 people. You know, those 5 signatures are going to mean so much during this time. So any type of help that you can give or support, or even if it's just your signature, you know, it's going to mean so much for our cause. And even if it's not something that we're able to get on the ballot, I really think it's at least important because it's leading to conversations. As we're talking about fair tax, as we're collecting signatures, even if we don't get it on the ballot, at least we're talking about, you know, the lack of funding in our schools.
Great. Thank you. I also see a couple more hands up. President Mack, could you have any, was that okay with Ms. Tafoya? Okay. I saw that Mr. Donovan had his hand up, and then we'll hear from Mr. Michael.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to, considering that we're talking about public education, bring light and make sure people are aware of an initiative that we're pushing forward through the Pueblo Education Coalition in community schools. And so, it's all along the lines of equity, and the whole idea of community schools is a school that's open all day, every day, and for everybody, where you could dive deep into the root causes associated with students' performance and what is inhibiting their performance. And so through partnerships, strategic partnerships with community organizations, we can provide the services that our students need that maybe the school district does not have the ability to offer through finances, for whatever reasons it may be. But really, the whole idea behind community schools is, it takes a village to raise a kid. So how can we partner with families, with students, with all our stakeholders in the community to ensure that they're receiving the best quality education as possible? And so that's something that we've been working on for the last several years. And so I just wanted to, make sure I had the opportunity to give my input there, and hope that you all will take some time to learn more about the initiative and the transformational impact that it's had around the whole country, and how we could bring it to our community here in Pueblo. And if you're interested in learning more, I'd love to talk to you about it and give you some more details, but just wanted to give a little plug.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. And Mr. Severnak, I think you might have something to add as well, since you're principal of.
Yeah, and I want to thank the group for inviting me. President Mack, thank you so much for inviting me to the group as a guest. I look forward to becoming a member in the near future. I would just like to affirm what President Mack said about access. The recent pandemic disproportionately affected students of color. And I mean, the amount of devices that we needed to check out to our students, and then that not being enough, then actually having to have the access. I also have something that's of interest to me is about how we educate students around social justice, how we, what's involved in our curriculum, because just with a lot of research I've been doing lately, it's really easy for kids to become radicalized through AI and algorithms, and when they start to educate themselves. And so my interest in being involved with the group is to start to open up those opportunities for students who want to become more politically active or be an activist, find ways for them to be responsible activists so they could build their future. But I'm here to listen initially, and I really thank you for having me in the group.
Thank you, everyone. Is there any other further comments before we move on to the next item? Madam Presidents Lytle and Madam President Mack, you're okay for the next item? Okay.
I am okay.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to health care. So healthcare, health equity, not just healthcare, but health in general, health equality for all Americans, including a healthy life and high quality healthcare. So just a little visual. As you know, in our country, we seem to have a first world nation, but second or third world healthcare system, right? Skyrocketing costs, the quality, depending on where you go, you get different levels of quality. A lot of people are uninsured, have no access to healthcare, and just the costs alone prevent them from getting healthcare. We want to move towards a world or a nation where all have access to healthcare, and that they can feel good about being taken care of. So I just want to get a little detail about that. I'm just going to read the statement from National about Health. The mission of the NAACP is to ensure equal political, educational, social, and economic rights for all persons, and to eliminate race-based discrimination. This also includes a focus on the right of African Americans and people of color to have optimal health outcomes and access to timely, quality, and affordable health care. We continue to have the highest incidence, prevalence, and mortality rates from chronic diseases like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and obesity, and issues like HIV and AIDS continue to overwhelm the Black community more so than any other racial or ethnic group, and that includes the coronavirus. So I'd like to hear some thoughts from the group about this. Starting with Madam President Mack. Nope. Any? Madam President Mack?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was just saying, I wanted to re-emphasize what the national had written down as far as the health initiative is. We know that people of color have disproportionate high rates of pre-existing health conditions, as you just stated. Even with maternal mortality rates is a disproportionate high among Black women. So we just need to address the ills of the health industry as it relates to the needs of people of color. Here in Pueblo, you know, one of our hospitals kind of shut down, went to minimum services due to the fact that they were servicing the marginalized community, those that didn't have resources to pay, is what, you know. So we just need to, you know, be prevalent as to what's going on and just stay engaged in that. Health education is also important, but we just need to stay in the fight to continue to have access, quality access to the health care system that we need in the communities of people of color.
Okay. I see that Ms. Munez Valdez had raised her hand. Would you like to add to that?
Yes, and again, thank you for inviting me to this virtual meeting. I am the nurse programs manager for the Southeastern Area Health Education Center. We cover 16 counties, and in a nutshell, our mission is to provide health education to the community and to connect people to healthcare professions. And a couple of words were really important to mention again, that there is equity and that there's access. And I just want to let people know that our organization will and does offer diabetes education, and we are actually in the process of starting our first virtual diabetes class, considering the circumstances that we're all living in. I'm going to be starting a diabetes class July 23rd. We also offer chronic disease self-management class. These are both evidence-based programs. They're 6 weeks, and so as to save time so that others can comment if they want to, I can probably share my phone number with the appropriate contact person. So if people are interested in those classes, they're free, they're at no cost. We also offer an AccuDetox or the acupuncture. It's a 5-point acupuncture protocol that we use for people that are under stress, wanting smoking cessation, eating issues, a variety. We do a variety of things, but if people want more information from me, I'd be glad to share my contact information.
Thank you, Ms. Munez Valdez. Also, I saw Madam President Rosemary Lytle had her hand up as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We know also, in addition to all of the things that Madam President Roxana said about our health and wellness game changer, we know that the NAACP's We're Done Dying campaign is about the dual pandemics in which we find ourselves particularly as Black communities. We find ourselves facing the pandemic of COVID-19, as well as the pandemic of racial injustice. So we definitely want to list health equity in a medical pandemic. We asked the question in our meeting with the governor about a month or so ago. Our COVID-19 Civil Rights Subcommittee asked the question, who's ignored in a medical pandemic? And there can be many answers to that. The first one that came to mind, because it was first asked by our immediate past president and CEO of the National NAACP, Reverend Dr. Cornell William Brooks, who is ignored in a medical pandemic. People who are presently incarcerated, people incarcerated are ignored in the medical pandemic, as well as those who are staff members in prisons. So we want to make sure that as we lift up our health and wellness game changer, that we include the equity issues that are prevalent in these dual pandemics. There's a document, Madam President, from our national office about the health implications of a medical pandemic that if you have not seen, I would like to share with you. I appreciate your full and extensive knowledge on NAACP Game Changers.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And I am not privy to that, so I would love to be able to get that.
Great, great. And you know, I think that really segues really well to the next game changer. And just for those who are on the phone, I'll be sure to check in with you towards the last part of the meeting to make sure we hear from everyone. So the next item is public safety and criminal justice, equitable dispensation of justice for all. One of the illustrations I wanted to emphasize was, to Madam President Lytle's point, is that the state and federal prison population has grown exponentially since the early 20th century. And as you know, there's this, I found a statistic from the Sentencing Project from 2003 about the prevalence of imprisonment in our country. And by the way, as you know, our country has the most per capita people in prison in the, you know, in the world as a top nation to do that. The lifetime likelihood of imprisonment of U.S. residents born in, say, this one in 2001. Now this is a pretty specific statistic, but I think it was pretty alarming. You know, there's an infographic that shows, you know, men are more, in general, all men versus all women, all men are more likely to be in prison. But when you look at white men compared to black men, compared to Latino men, you get a higher rate of imprisonment for whatever reason. And so that, of course, to Madam President Lytle's point, even cuts across the healthcare as well. And just again, we always have to be vigilant and recognize that Black lives matter. People of color, their lives matter. Native lives matter. And that the violence incurred on people of color that is disproportionate for, you know, from law enforcement officials is a matter of concern that should be addressed, should be discussed in a peaceful forum. So that is the role of the NAACP. So I want to briefly just reflect the statement from the National about criminal justice. The NAACP advocates for smarter, results-based criminal justice policies to keep our communities safe, including treatment for addiction and mental health problems, judicial discretion in sentencing, and an end to racial disparities at all levels of the system. This country is home to the world's largest prison population, as tough on crime laws have put an unprecedented number of non-violent offenders behind bars in recent years. Our neighborhoods feel no more secure. Let's open the floor to our executive committee and members. I see Ms. Patricia O'Brien has raised her hand. Go ahead, start.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Alan's comment about the disproportionality among men in prison. it follows the same way with women in prison, that the highest disproportionality are Black women, as then Latinx, and then white women. And there's a little bit of changing in that we're seeing more white women come into prison, but there's still very evident disproportionality for women in prison as well.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan.
Yes.
Madam President Lytle had her hand up, I think, as well. Is that correct? No? No? Okay. I'll lower it for you. Mr. and Miss Kathy Javino.
No, it was Mr. Javino. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Javino, Chair.
Okay. Quite honestly, I'm on the Community Corrections Board, and I see the criminal case files of people transitioning to, let's say, out of the prison system. And what we have here is a dual epidemic. We have a health issue, with mental health issues involving minorities greater than non-minorities. We also have a lack of education issue or lack of opportunity issue. So this all goes hand in hand. You just can't concentrate on one of them. It's in fact, it's a trifecta of disasters, quite honestly, as well as innate, even intentional or unintentional racism. So I think it's good that we're addressing all these issues because they do go hand in hand, and they are a disproportionate impact on the poorer people and the minorities specifically. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the group would like to add? I know that Mr. Donovan will as well, but go ahead, Ms. President.
I just wanted to say that we know that the justice system is not a just system for all people equally. We must address police brutality, the high incarceration rates that was mentioned, police stops and arrests of people of color for no reasons, over policing in our communities, and just in particular, just the negative interactions with law enforcement. I spoke with our law enforcement about community policing, getting back to the police knowing those people in their community where the trust level, the transparency can be brought about. Even in the court system, how we select juries, how they, don't take certain people for certain jury selections. And even in our judgeships, we have to educate ourselves about who we're putting in those judgeships, and just having representation in all levels in order to sustain the equity that we need.
Great, thank you. Madam President, do you have?
Oh, sorry, Ellen. If there was somebody else that wanted to talk, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Donovan.
Okay, I just wanted to, again, say thanks for letting me come on this call and joining you. I'm putting on a couple different hats. I just talked to you about education through the Pueblo Education Coalition, but I'm also part of an organization, Defund Pueblo PD, which falls in line with this game changer here. Here in Pueblo, the police budget is nearly 1/3 of the entire city budget at $31.7 million over the last decade plus. It's been steadily rising while social services and social programs continue to be defunded and their budget continues to decline. So part of this organization, the Defund Pueblo PD, we want to reallocate that budget into meaningful social programs that are going to uplift our community rather than punitively punish through incarceration. And so, we want more mental health workers. We want more social workers. We want to look at some of the programs and initiatives that are working around the country to avert having to call the police for nonviolent instances and instead ensure that there is a trained professional equipped to handle things like homelessness, handle things like mental health, handle things like drug addiction. If there's not a need to bring an armed police officer into the situation, we are advocating for that. We want to make sure the people in our community are receiving the treatment that they need rather than being pushed into prisons and pushed into jail. And those, needs aren't being addressed. And so we're a fledgling organization. We just got started probably about a month ago or less. but there's a lot of traction that we're gaining. A lot of people are interested in becoming a part of reallocating this budget. What our plan is, we want to mobilize the public to pressure our city council to re-examine the city budget and the mayor, not just the city council, but the mayor as well, to evaluate the city budget and avert some of those funds into, like I said, social programs that are going to uplift rather than punitively punish. Again, and I just want to emphasize that, you know, it's happening all around the country. This movement is not isolated within Pueblo, but it's everywhere. And we're seeing success in other cities and towns around the country. And there's a lot of resources, a lot of opportunities to partner up with these other places to really show our city council and our leadership that there's alternatives to just policing. And so that's the other hat that I'm wearing today as I join you with this meeting. So again, I want to thank you. And if there's anyone interested in learning more about that and how we could partner with the NAACP to continue moving this forward, I definitely want to continue with that conversation. So that was my second little plug. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan.
I wanted to emphasize that the NAACP is not endorsing defunding the police department. We understand the movement. We understand the need of mental health, substance abuse. We understand that we need, the culture needs to change. But we also understand that the police need money to train. Our focus is to be at the table, helping make decisions, determining what kind of training, how often the training is, having input into what we do when something occurs that shouldn't occur, just the leadership of the department. So we're not for defunding. I just want to put that out there, but we are for the many causes that plague our community. And we will continue to work in collaboration with our law enforcement to ensure that these items are addressed, our concerns and issues are addressed.
Thank you.
But we will follow our national initiative.
Thank you. I also want to open the floor to Madam President Lytle, who I believe had a raised hand on this issue as well. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I wanted to say about our game changers, someone mentioned, did not mention this word, but the idea of intersectionality. We know that all of these game changer issues, it's intentional that they're intersectional. We can't work on public education without working on criminal justice and public safety, without working on health and wellness, without working on voting rights and civic engagement, without working on economic sustainability. Former President Jealous, when he instituted the game changer model that stayed with us today, said it was like the hand. There are the 5 fingers on your hand. Which one do you want to live without? We feel that we can't live without any of those. I also want to say that when we think about the impact on communities of color, and specifically on African American communities, the disproportionate impact exists despite race, despite income, and despite education. We know that those of us in the Black community in Pueblo can be considered, and indeed are, middle class and upper middle class, highly educated, government, civil service, retired military, best and brightest, as we might say. Yet these game changers impact our communities. So it's not about, we do want to end the wealth gap, but we know if we look around right here in Colorado, we see that all of these things affect us despite, or even in the absence of, the wealth gap. So that's a point that I wanted to make. I want to, when it's appropriate, talk about national convention, perhaps, Madam President. But I want to say that the issue of defunding the police will certainly, defunding law enforcement and refunding other priorities will certainly come up during our national convention. At this point, the NAACP does not have a policy that endorses defunding law enforcement.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, and that's what Madam President Mack was mentioning, is to reiterate, is that currently, because it's such a new phenomenon, new issue that's arisen so quickly and so fast, Mr. Donovan, is that the that the NAACP's response has not been formulated yet. So it is essential that the conversation continue within our communities, that we learn about the issues, that we get the facts, and that we continue peaceful conversations about them. But also eventually it will come into the national convention. It will emerge through there and be decided from there, and then we'll get directed through there. Oh, did you have your hand raised?
As I said, as I said, communication is the key. Policy change is the key. Our national president has had time to look at it, and he has chosen to say he needs to further engage with our national officers and things of that sort. As state conference president said, it may be talked about at our national convention, which will be later this month virtually. But for now, we're as a local unit, we'll continue our communication and work upon the relationship we have garnered with our law enforcement community, as well as our governmental community. So.
And Madam President Lytle, you had your hand raised again. Is that correct? No, you're okay. Okay. I saw that Kathy and Eric Javano had their hand raised before I recognize them on that. I also wanted to mention that I am also a government official myself. I'm a city official. I work for the city of Pueblo. I'm an urban planner. I'm a city planner. Gratefully, what I do is community development. It's very good stuff. But I also have, in my role as second vice president to the Pueblo branch, I have to balance my role with a city official. So just so everyone knows that when we talk about the defund issue, which is separate from the police policies issues, but when we talk about defund and we talk about the Columbus statue, you'll notice that I will step back. I will reserve my opinions in the public forum because of that potential conflict of interest. So, but just because I step back and silent, keep my opinion to myself to make sure that there's no conflict of interest, it doesn't mean that this organization shouldn't be discussing it. So I would encourage that these conversations continue. That our organization explore these issues with our community, that we maintain a peaceful public forum to address these issues that are happening in our community. And I think that's very important. But I also wanted to mention that too, so everyone knows, both at the NAACP and the city government, where I stand on that as well. So thank you.
Yes, I was just going to say, yes, as I said before, we will continue our communication with the different organizations and to affect the kind of change that we want to see in Pueblo as the NAACP Pueblo branch. And again, we have many people that work for the city, the state, and some people may have different opinions or thoughts on certain issues, but you can have your own thought or personal your personal thoughts. It just, as a organization, we're going to have our platform that we will stand by.
Okay, and next we'll hear from Eric Javano. You had your hand raised up. You're on mute, Eric. Go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I feel like a bad commercial here for Verizon. Any case, I am a duly elected civil service commissioner, and I will be meeting with the city police department representatives in about a week or two and discussing their candidate selection and hiring process and training process. Because my concern is a lot of these issues can be diffused if you hire the right people with the right attitude and the right point of view as far as the Constitution, etc. So I plan to ask some questions and looking at it very thoroughly because, like I said, this is a very important part. If you hire, if you start off on the right foot, you're gonna have less problems. And Alan, don't worry, you're allowed to have an opinion. Just say you're not acting in the capacity of city employee, that you're acting as a personal, on your own personal basis. That you're allowed to do. Additionally, I agree with the Madam President for the region, and I apologize if I got the title wrong, in that this is a much interwoven issue where you're looking at all aspects and it has to be addressed at all different levels to get the optimum results. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Mr. Rob Donovan, you had your hand up again, and go ahead.
Yeah, just a real quick clarifying question. So you said that the National Convention will be meeting this month sometime. So if in fact the National Convention decides to endorse the defund efforts, will then that be followed through at the local level?
Yes, we will follow through with whatever our national organization tells us to do. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Mr. Donovan, I also encourage you to become a member of our local branch because, anyone who sees that their interests and their issues clearly align with the Game Changers, I would encourage you to become a member and get involved. So let's move on to the next Game Changer. And again, just a reminder, we intend on having more meetings and actually our next meetings, hopefully maybe once a week, or at least every other week. We want to get in-depth discussions about each of these Game Changers. That's what we mean by listening sessions, and we're going to focus on that soon. But just want to finish up this series here. The next item is voting rights and political representation, right? So that's where every American will have free, open, equal, and protected access to the vote and fair representation at all levels in the political process. By protecting democracy, enhancing equity, and increasing democratic participation and civic engagement, African Americans and people of color will be proportionally elected to political office. Just want to, just a little illustration here. Everyone remembers the Voting Rights Act when it was signed in the 60s, but there's still more work to be done, right? Even today, we look at statistics, even just, again, intersectionality, like Madam President Lytle said, because of felony convictions nationwide, you get 6 million Americans who cannot vote, but there's a disproportionate effect on African Americans. 1 out of every 13 African Americans has lost their voting rights due to felony disenfranchisement laws versus 1 in every 56 non-Black voters. So, but it also very important to emphasize is that in terms of political representation, as far as who we see representing us, what you see, and I must say a lot has been changing in recent years, but it used to be that you'd have we want to achieve a level of pluralism, a lot of various people from all walks of life to represent us, but what we constantly saw was just the same type of people who get elected to represent us. We want to move towards a fair representation where we have people of all walks of life and we have we want to achieve the ideal of proportionate representation. So that's just some thoughts there, but let me just read the detail from the national as far as political voting and civic engagement. There's an initiative called Turnout 18. NAACP, along with our 1 million plus members, advocates, and activists throughout the United States, are frontline advocates committed to raising awareness for political, educational, social, and economic equality for communities of color in the electoral and legislative process. Through all the branches and youth councils and college chapters, there is this initiative to actively increase African American responsiveness of citizens and people of color to be fully engaged in the democratic process. And there's toolkits and there's resources to do these. So let's go on and bring it to the group. What's your thoughts on voting and political action? How about our co-chair of the Political Action Committee, Marty Poole? Would you like to share your thoughts on that?
Political act. I was just going to talk about what our committee political action is. The purpose is to seek and increase registration and voting, to work for the enactment of municipal, state, and federal legislation designed to improve the educational, political, and economic status of minorities, to seek to repeal of racial discriminatory legislation, to work to improve the administration of justice, to secure equal enforcement of the law, and to keep the national office and the unit informed of all proposed legislation that affects the minority groups. The committee will be that's important too, the committee is nonpartisan, and we don't endorse candidates for public office. And some of the things that our chapter has been involved with are we attend a legislative breakfast, community meetings. We are partnering with the League of Women Voters for voting registration and to get the issues out to the public. So that's basically that information for the Political Action Committee, what we are doing.
Thank you, Ms. Poole. I also see that Ms. Florence Hunt has joined us and is she with Ms. Ivestein White on the call?
Yes.
Ms. Ivestein White, as co-chair of the Political Action Committee, do you have anything else you'd like to add from your perspective?
Not really, because I have probably the same thing that Ms. Poole has.
Okay, very good. But I may ask, I mean, you remember back when when the Civil Right or the Voting Rights Act was signed in the 60s and what we've seen since then, do you think, in your opinion, there's been enough done to guarantee equal rights and equal representation since then? There's more work to be done, right?
Oh, yeah,
oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot more work to be done. There's been so many roadblocks put in the way since the Voting Rights Act, the redlining, the what is it called? The gerrymandering, all of that. So yes, there's much more work to do in reference to that.
And incidentally, a lot of younger folks. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to emphasize the census 2020. You know, we have the census every. Oh, go ahead, Sister Poole.
Well, the other part of our political action issues would be shape your future by turning in your 2020 census. And it's really important because important to complete the 2020 census because it determines how hundreds and billions of federal dollars will flow into our community for the next 10 years. Medical, mental health services, it includes Medicare, nutritional assistance programs, highway, schools, it affects Head Start programs, busing, public transit system, and the congressional representatives are a few. And then other things that are affected are health, of course, and early childhood education, the environment, and seniors. So it affects an awful lot of things. And also, in the next few weeks, it says we are in the final weeks and the days of the 2020 census in terms of self-response, which means you are mailing in your response itself. Because of the pandemic, they hope that everybody will do that and do their part, because if not, then they're going to have to go out and knock on doors to gather the responses for people, and they hope that they don't have to do that due to the pandemic. So they're encouraging everybody to to fill out your census and turn it in on your own. Please do that.
Thank you.
And it's so easy. It's so easy. It's online, so it's about 9 questions. So
Right.
please understand the importance of that.
I also wanted to add that as we get more engaged with younger people, I find that younger people are more savvy about other issues regarding voting rights. For instance, I'm just going to do another quickly share screen. There's a documentary I saw called Kill Chain, the Cyber War on America's Elections. It's a very compelling documentary I saw on HBO. It was released this year. And I was thinking maybe in our more in-depth discussion about the voting rights issues, maybe we'll watch the trailer at that later meeting, because I thought that was a very compelling thing about how people are using technology and social media to just mess with and trick up elections. And I think we're fortunate in Colorado that we use mail-in ballots, because that's a way to prevent voter fraud through voting machines. But what we're seeing all over the place, especially I saw in the documentary, very disturbing results in Georgia, where voting machines were hacked, and there's still a lot of it's disturbing. So I think we should be vigilant about these things. So that's my piece as well. Let's move on to the last game changer that the sixth and final game changer here is the youth outreach to youth. Expanding youth and young adult engagement. This is where we want to expand. This might be the most important game changer of all. I mean, mainly because it involves getting the next generation involved. I like to say that I'm 42, so I don't really consider myself young. I don't consider myself an elder either, but on this call and on our executive committee, we have a lot of very good elders who we look towards for their advice and their perspective. And I think we need the elders to mentor the youth. We need the youth to get involved. And we're talking about people under the age of 40. It's not just, yes, people under 18, but people under the age of 40 to get more and more involved. And that's what this game changer is about, is targeting that demographic and that demographic of people under the age of 40 will be key in helping with policy research, development, and advocacy on all levels. Again, intersectionality with all the other game changers. That increases capacity of our organization with recruitment, engagement, and training, and retention, and finding innovative ways and approaches, but also to expand our consciousness about issues that surround things. And there's a lot of initiatives regarding youth engagement, young people engagement, not just for people under 40, but making sure we reach to the colleges and the schools. And there's a lot of resources that our national organization have regarding that. And I just wanted to emphasize in little infographics here. There's the image about the elders looking to our elders and bridging that gap. And we want to move towards a robust organization. This is actually what I wanted to see with our strategic planning organization, to have more younger people who align with our goals to get involved and to reinvigorate our Pueblo branch, and to recognize that there was an initiative that the Youth and College Division of the NAACP did. It's #IMatter, to speak to the youth in the ways they understand and recognize. And we're seeing it today with the demonstrations in this time of the pandemic and Black Lives Matter and the violence that we've seen and the increased demonstrations that youth are hungry for change. They're hungry to get involved and to see change that we need to see, to be the change that we need to see. And we've seen it since the days of Martin Luther King and the actions of nonviolence, and we're seeing that reflect today with most of the demonstrations we're seeing. So we have to bridge that gap to the youth, otherwise we'll be lost. So I want to open the floor to our group here, please.
Well, I just want to emphasize again the 1 year free memberships that our branch has been offering for the last couple of years. we must engage the young people. And I would say even going to the youth, getting them involved. I've been talking with my grandson. So right now it's the right time because even the young are affected, and we need we need to educate them. But as we educate, get them interest in organizations like ours, so we can continue the fight until we reach the ultimate goal of our objectives.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President Lytle asked me if we climate justice, environmental justice. Environmental justice is another intersectionality issue. And while the game changers, while we just mentioned the 6 game changers, you can say that environmental justice crosses through all of those. Madam President Lytle, would you like to speak about that, about environmental justice and the importance of that, please?
Yes, absolutely. Although you're correct, environmental justice was not listed as one of the game changers originally, and it still has not been included as a game changer. It is actually our most well-funded, our most highly staffed, our most well-staffed department at the national office. The work of Jackie Patterson in leading our environmental and climate justice department is amazing. We know that when we talk about game changers and their impact on communities, this is one where despite your income, despite your education, simply because of race and where you live, you can be disproportionately impacted by this, what we consider, even though it's not officially a true game changer for our communities. Coal-fired plants, an important issue for our communities and fought for a long time in Colorado Springs. We now have a suspend date for the Martin Drake power plant in Colorado Springs that has been moved up, although in our opinion, not far enough. But we know that it will have an impact on our communities in 2023. In Colorado Springs, we're also looking at plastic bag fees and other efforts to mitigate pollution in our communities. So just wanted to lift up environmental and climate justice as an important game changer for NAACPers.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, that's true, because in Pueblo, we've seen early on as the ballot issue came across regarding the electric utility, that discussion was raised into our forums. And we did get some great discussion with the Sierra Club San de Cristo branch, which is the branch for the environmental organization in Southern Colorado. One of our members, Mark Holmes, is a member of the NAACP and a member of the Sierra Club, and he's been a great gift to our organization, and he's got a lot of heart. And so maybe perhaps when we talk about later on, when we have a meeting to talk about the in-depth health game changer, maybe we can also make room for talking in detail about the climate justice, environmental and climate justice program goals of the NAACP, and how clearly those align well with health as a game changer overall. And that'll be a great time to get into more detail about that, I think. So
I also want to just say that that is one of our standing committees, environmental and climate justice. We talk about the coal plant, but also the mustard gas that was out at the Pueblo depot. So there's issues in reference to that here in Pueblo too. And that is one of our standing committees, which we need assistance with. So,
and a lot of organizations in town, a lot of organizations are involved in environmental justice, and that'd be a great way for people to become members from other organizations, to become a member of the Pueblo branch, get involved in an environmental justice committee, and then to have this cross collaboration. Again, I think the educational committee that I mentioned earlier, well, El Pueblo and Arts Alliance and others, environmental justice is one of their concerns. So I can see that being a great way to get more people involved in our organization, especially a lot of younger people are really concerned about that as well.
And yes, Pueblo branch, I encourage you to utilize national office staff on your meetings. In the past, we might have invited them and they couldn't be here even for our state conventions. But now we're finding that we have more access. I am very happy to connect you with someone who might be able to come on your meeting focused on this topic or any of the others from national office where it makes sense to do a deep dive, as you do so and try to anchor in local issues.
Thank you. We will take you up on that. Thank you so much, State Conference President.
Thank you. Any other thoughts about youth outreach? Again, this is an important issue, youth outreach. Let me just say that from the Juneteenth event, before, during, and after, right after President Mack issued that statement that got published in the Chieftain, we got lit up with a lot of interest and people wanted to get involved. They wanted to sign up. They wanted to know what's going on. And then after the Juneteenth event, we had 25 people sign up for information. And a lot of those people are people under the age of 40. We will continue to see that, and we should act fast. There is a sense of urgency there, but it's just an opportunity to engage with people. And I think it's good that we're starting these discussions about the game changers. I'm glad that the executive committee resolved to talk about these in detail. And I'm looking forward to the coming weeks in which we can have a more detailed discussion about each game changer, and then to really get into detail about what their issues are and what they would like to talk about. Any other thoughts about youth?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say we're pretty much on target. It's 1:35, so we're about 5 minutes over. And I just wanted to end by saying that we understand that these game changers are intertwined. And as we work on our standing committees, which is local work, that we can address these issues. We can make changes that we deem necessary. Our organization as a whole thinks change can be made when we are at the table introducing legislation, advocating policy, and to advance our mission. When individuals are in place, diversity representation, working on issues and concerns which impact our quality of life, our community. The Pueblo branch. Okay, the Pueblo branch puts much emphasis on positive and effective communication, forging partnerships to advocate on our behalf, moving dialogue to action. However, we're not naive to understand protest is good and is needed. We work locally. We work with local, statewide, and national government entities, organizations, and individuals forming coalitions to push forward our agenda. Some of the organizations we work with is the Great Education Colorado, the Colorado Public Interest Research Group, the Center for Responsible Lending. Locally, we work with the Juneteenth Organization, Eureka, PACO, Pueblo Ministerial Fellowship, the League of Women Voters, the Human Relations Commission, the Pueblo Chamber of Commerce, Latino Chamber of Commerce, the El Pomar Foundation. We work with El Pueblo History Museum, the Pueblo City and County Library, getting programs out to the community. And then we also have, like I said, we have forged a strong relationship with our city and county governments, including the mayor's office and our law enforcement community. So we will continue to do what we think is necessary for a mutual dialogue, mutual respect in attaining these game changers. the initiatives of these game changers. So with that, if there's nothing else, that is the end of the agenda.
There's a
If
couple
no one
other.
else has anything.
Sure, Madam
If no one-
President. There's a couple other. I just want to acknowledge those who've joined us. I know that Sol Telefoya had an announcement, but before we do that, just wanted to mention that Ms. Ruth Nierenberg wanted to volunteer to work with Ms. Poole and Ms. White on the Political Justice Committee. So just keep that in mind. Well, I'll get Ms. Ruth to contact Ms. Marty to have a conversation about that. And we'll get to Ms. Sol's announcement momentarily. But I also want to just give anyone, those on the call who hadn't a chance to speak yet, if they had anything else they'd like to share. So I see Ms. Abby Algene is on the call. Abby, did you have anything you'd like to share?
I just want to, at this late of date in my life, finally join your organization, number one. Number two, I'm involved with the Grove community in the neighborhood revitalization project. And then I belong to a group called Las Comadres, and we are interested in, hey, is this Kathy?
Yes.
And so just wanted to mention how we are interested in maintaining cultural awareness, and especially in the education field, and the lack of interest at local high schools, specifically Central High School, and the decrease in Chicano studies, and pushing out the real live classroom of Spanish onto online. Spanish is number 3 in the business world, and especially in America, and it's the third language spoken, and we can't have our high schools going backward when we have a wonderful president, Mote at CSU Pueblo, trying to institute CSU Pueblo as the gateway to the Southwest, and then you don't have the background of high school. So anyway, I am interested in joining. I want to specifically get involved with the youth, marketing for the youth participation, and also in the political legislation committees. That's where I'm at.
Thank you, Ms. Algene.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roxanne. Thanks.
Okay.
Also, I see there's a Miss Marcia on the call. If you like, you could chime in anytime.
I joined late and just listening.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. And again, any questions, just you can all call us or email us. We have that, so just let us know. Miss Kathy, I see, had her hand raised.
Yes, I just want to make a mention that their Pueblo City Councilman, Mark Aliff, is going to make a proposal to the City Council of a Pueblo Police Advisory Committee, Council. And he's going to be forming that. He's going to be announcing that shortly. The Pueblo Human Relations Commission had a meeting with him about a week ago. He talked about it. He is also going to be announcing it formally, I believe, in the next City Council meeting. He is going to be recruiting about, I think, 11 people on the commission, and part of that, he's looking for some community members. He's going to have folks also included on that commission, one or two people from the Pueblo Public Defender's Office, excuse me, yes. So I wanted to make mention of this to you, because it might be wise to consider maybe someone from the Pueblo NAACP to probably throw their hat in the ring if they're interested to join this Police Advisory Council. So it might be food for thought to represent the
I will contact him to make sure
Okay.
we're a part that, that were on the table are
Yeah,
part of that commission.
I think you need to get there in there right now, because I think I've heard chatter that there are several persons who are interested that may have some interest in the topic, but maybe, you know, may not have some experience in these areas. So I think might be best if Roxanne, if you really lobby for this as a representative, and I think I think you need to do this sooner than later.
I will. Thank you so much for that information.
Yeah, I just wanted to make you aware of it, because again, I was in that meeting a couple days ago and I thought about you, but I think you need to be aware of it. Okay.
Thank you.
Also,
Excuse me, may I add just one thing? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Ivy.
As a participant in our local Grove Neighborhood Association, we have monthly meetings. And I found out at the last meeting that there has been an overriding sentiment that we all agree on, is there is a significant chemical smell in this area. And then to find out that we believe that there is petroleum in the water, and this issue would be definitely need to be addressed on the environmental level of NAACP, not only us, but community-wide, because the city is dancing around the subject. And here we are revitalizing our neighborhoods and, with beatification projects when the water is tainted. And just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
I'll see if I can see who maybe there's the public health department might be a good start to see what can be done or what can be investigated about that.
Thank you.
And we'll talk, Abby, about that later for sure. I also wanted to acknowledge Miss Linda Lemieux is on the call as well. Miss Linda Lemieux, would you like to add anything?
Just happy to be with you. And I think one thing that I have not heard at today's meeting is anything about branch elections. And just procedurally, there are going to be some things that are coming up, as I know President Mack is aware. But since you are encouraging game changer alliances and engagement in general at this meeting, just calling attention to the branch election procedures manual and that information for folks.
Thank you, Linda. Yes, we have been discussing that, and hopefully, as I told the executive committee, we will be having training in reference to our branch elections as the new guidelines have come out. Yes, so we are aware of that. Thank you.
And that will most definitely be an item on our agenda for the next regular meeting on the second Saturday of August. Most definitely, for sure. We'll stay on top of that. And any other general comments from the crowd? I also recognize my father, Walt Lamberg. He's been on the call listening as well. Thank you, Dad, for hanging out with us. Yeah. And
I did want to make an announcement in reference to, I was on the interview panel for the deputy fire chief. We hired, there were 2 positions open for deputy fire chief. And at the end of that, it was noted that we will be having recruits for the police department in August, as well as the fire department later on in the year. And they both, the chief of the fire department, Barb, requested that we get that information out to our contacts, just to let them know that they can go to the government website and get the applications, get, whatever the requirements are, but to be looking at that. for the firefighters and police officers.
Great. Also wanted to, Ms. Sol Tafoya had an announcement for a July 17th event. Ms. Sol, would you like to share about that?
Thank you. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so I'll be real quick. So July 17, we are holding an event at Mineral Palace Park from 6:30 to about maybe 8 p.m. It's going to be both a lamentation to acknowledge the suffering of the children and the separation of families, and it's also going to be a celebration because recently a U.S. judge did rule that they're not following the law. So children are not supposed to be legally detained more than 20 days. And so that's, that definitely isn't taking place. So by July 17, detention centers should have already put a lot of effort into reuniting these children with their families. So again, it's a lamentation, but also a celebration. We still need some speakers, some talent. If you want to sing, read a poem, just contact me. My phone number and my email is on the chat. Also, I could use some hand with the audio. I have a gentleman who wants to bring his guitar, and he said that he needs some equipment to hook up to the guitar. I'm not familiar with what he may need, but if any of you here would like to support us that way or know of someone who can, I would really, really appreciate it.
I would recommend getting in touch with Javier Quiones. He's very talented with audiovisual. Do you know how to get in touch with Javier? Yeah. Cool. And Madam President Lytle has raised her hand with an announcement as well.
Yes, I joined the call just a bit late. I'm not sure if the national convention and the regional meetings were already mentioned.
Well, please do. Please tell us about it.
Yeah.
Madam Roxana, is that something that you're planning to mention now?
You can go on and mention that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Our regional meetings and our national convention will both take place virtually. You, as a compliant unit in this state conference, thank you for your due diligence in regard to your compliant status. As a compliant unit, you will be allowed to participate and to vote in our regional meetings, which will take place virtually July 19th through the 24th. And our annual convention, I believe, will be open to both delegates and to those who participate in our public meetings, July 26th through 30th. You have the communication from Ms. Audrey Lamister about registering your delegates, and you should utilize that information in order for us to be fully represented at especially regional meeting. I think, as we know, yours truly has the honor of serving in my second term as president for Midwest Region 4. Those duties almost solely evolve around convention and around interactions with our National Board of Directors. So I would appreciate full attendance from our oldest branch, our most seasoned historic branch in this state conference, the NAACP Pueblo branch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam President.
Well, I have nothing further to report. And is any other comments any other announcements or comments in the group here? Okay. So what we're going to do is, spread the word that we're having these meetings, these listening sessions in the next few weeks. I would suggest, I'll suggest to our executive committee that we try to see if we can do it once a week or maybe once every other week, but also stay on top of the conference activities as well and the elections. But that way, these listening sessions will enable us to engage in depth with the folks who have all these, from all the other organizations in Pueblo with all the issues of their concern. I think this would be a great way to continue that engagement and grow our capacity. So if there's no other business, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn and then have a prayer read.
I so move.
Marty
Second.
Portland, and seconded by Kathy Javanu. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those who say nay, the motion passes unanimously. And Mr. Jones had dropped off on the call. I'll check on him and see how he's doing, but maybe someone else could lead us in the prayer.
Reverend Brown, can you lead us in a prayer to adjourn the meeting?
He had to jump off too. He had to facilitate a wedding.
Okay. Father God, we come to you at this moment just thanking you for this opportunity to come together to share ideas on what is needed to make our community safe, equitable. We ask that you continue to be with us, to guide us, and just to help us do the things that are pleasing in your sight. We pray this prayer in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, everyone. We'll stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the weekend.
You too.